What happens when one of comedy's biggest legends sits down for what should be a simple morning chat and walks out in the middle of a live broadcast? In just 31 seconds of one comment, a television host managed to turn a friendly interview into one of the most shocking moments in morning show history. Dave Chappelle was supposed to talk about his latest comedy tour. That's it. A simple conversation to start people's mornings with a few laughs. But what actually went down that day would become one of the most talked about television moments of the year. The cameras were rolling. The studio audience was ready. And Dave walked onto that familiar set with his usual calm energy, ready to share some stories and promote his show. He shook hands with Sam Champion, waved to the crowd, and sat down in that guest chair like he'd done 100 times before on 100 different shows. Sam started off friendly enough. "Dave, great to have you here. Your tour is breaking records. Everywhere. What's it like being back on the road?" Dave smiled. "Man, it feels good. I missed it. I missed connecting with people, hearing them laugh, feeling that energy in the room. There's nothing like it." "You've been away from the spotlight for a while," Sam continued. "Some people wondered if you'd ever come back to this level." "Well, I never really left," Dave said, his tone still light. "I just took time to figure out what mattered to me. I needed to step back and be with my family, work on my craft on my own terms." That's when things started to shift. Sam leaned forward with this look on his face, like he was about to ask something deep. "But Dave, let's be honest. When you left your show all those years ago, you walked away from $50 million. Don't you think you owe your fans an explanation for that? Don't you think that was selfish?" The audience went quiet. You could feel the temperature in that studio change. Dave's smile faded just a little. He took a breath. "Selfish?" Dave repeated. "I don't think choosing my mental health and my family over money is selfish. I think it's human." Robin Roberts, sitting next to Sam, jumped in quickly. "Dave, I think what we're all curious about is how you made that decision. That takes courage." "Thank you, Robin," Dave said, nodding at her. "It wasn't easy, but it was necessary." But Sam wasn't done. He had this edge to his voice now, like he was trying to prove something. "Come on, Dave. You signed a contract. You made a commitment. And then you just disappeared. How is that not running away?" Dave's face changed. Not angry yet, but you could see him processing what was happening. "Running away? I honored my commitments in the ways that mattered. I didn't owe anyone my sanity." George Stephanopoulos, sitting on the other side of the desk, tried to steer things back. "Dave, your comedy has always pushed boundaries. What do you think makes your voice so important right now?" "I appreciate that, George," Dave said. "I think people are hungry for honesty. They want someone to say the things they're thinking, but are afraid to say. That's what I try to do." Sam cut back in, and his tone was even sharper now. "But isn't that just another way of saying you like being controversial? You like getting people riled up?" "There's a difference between being controversial and being honest," Dave responded, his voice steady but firm. "I'm not trying to rile anyone up. I'm trying to tell the truth as I see it." "Your truth," Sam shot back. "Which is convenient, isn't it? You get to say whatever you want, offend whoever you want, and then hide behind 'it's just comedy.'" The audience gasped. Robin looked at Sam with wide eyes. Michael Strawn, who had been quiet up until now, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Dave stared at Sam for a long moment. "I don't hide behind anything. Comedy is how I process the world. It's how I make sense of things. If that offends you, maybe the problem isn't with me." "Oh, so now I'm the problem?" Sam said, his voice rising. "I'm just asking questions that I think a lot of people want answered." "You're not asking questions," Dave said, his voice calm but cutting. "You're making accusations and disguising them as questions. There's a difference." Laura Spencer tried to jump in. Let's take a step back here. Dave, tell us about what fans can expect from your tour. What's the show like? Dave took a breath, clearly trying to reset. The show is about life, about family, about the things we all go through. I talk about my kids, my wife, growing up, getting older. It's personal, but I think it's universal too. Unless people find it offensive, Sam muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. That was it. That was the moment. Dave turned his whole body toward Sam. What is your problem, man? Dave asked, his voice still controlled, but with an edge now. I came here to have a conversation, not to be attacked. I'm not attacking you, Sam said, throwing his hands up. I'm doing my job. I'm asking tough questions. Tough questions? Dave laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're being disrespectful. There's a way to challenge someone without being condescending. Sam leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Maybe you're just not used to being challenged. Maybe you're used to everyone kissing your feet because you're Dave Chappelle. The other hosts looked stunned. Robin put her hand on Sam's arm. Sam, come on. No, let him talk, Dave said, holding up his hand. I want to hear this. You walked away from millions, Sam continued, his voice dripping with judgment. You left people who depended on you hanging. You disappeared to Africa or wherever, and now you come back and expect everyone to just welcome you with open arms like nothing happened, like you're some kind of hero. I never said I was a hero, Dave replied, his voice low and measured. I'm just a man who made a decision that was right for him and his family. A decision that affected thousands of people, Sam pressed. The crew who lost their jobs, the writers, the producers. Did you think about them? Of course I thought about them, Dave said, his patience clearly wearing thin. I think about them all the time, but I also had to think about myself. I had to think about whether I could keep doing something that was destroying me from the inside. Michael Strawn finally spoke up, his voice gentle. Dave, I think we can all respect that kind of self-awareness. Not everyone has the strength to walk away from something, even when it's hurting them. Thank you, Michael, Dave said, his eyes still on Sam, but Sam wasn't finished. So basically, you're saying your feelings mattered more than everyone else's livelihoods. That's not what I said, Dave countered. Stop twisting my words. I'm not twisting anything, Sam said. I'm just pointing out the facts. The facts? Dave's voice rose for the first time. The fact is, you don't know what I was going through. The fact is, you don't know what it's like to have the weight of an entire show on your shoulders while everyone around you is trying to pull you in different directions. The fact is, you're sitting here in your comfortable morning show chair, passing judgment on decisions you know nothing about. The studio was dead silent. George tried to intervene. Gentlemen, I think we all need to take a breath here. I'm perfectly calm, Sam said, but his face was red. I just think it's interesting that Dave can dish it out in his comedy, but he can't take it when someone questions him. Questioning and attacking are two different things, Dave said, standing up now, and I don't have to sit here and take this. Oh, so you're going to run away again? Sam said, and you could hear people in the audience gasp. Just like you always do when things get uncomfortable? Dave unclipped his microphone. His hands were steady, but you could see the anger in his eyes. You know what, Sam? I've been in this business a long time. I've done interviews with people who disagreed with me, who challenged me, who pushed me. But they did it with respect. They did it because they actually wanted to understand, not because they wanted to score points. I'm just doing my job, Sam repeated. No, Dave said firmly. You're being a bully. And I don't do bullies. Robin stood up. Dave, please, don't leave. We can move on from this. I appreciate you, Robin, Dave said, his voice softer when he looked at her. And George, Michael, Lara, you all have been nothing but professional, but I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected on live television. You're really going to do this? Sam asked, standing up now too. You're really going to walk out in the middle of a live show? Watch me, Dave said. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Sam called out as Dave started walking toward the exit. You can't handle criticism. You can't handle someone calling you out. Dave stopped and turned around one more time. There's a difference between criticism and cruelty, Sam. Maybe somebody should teach you that. The audience erupted. Some people were applauding Dave. Others looked shocked. The other hosts sat frozen, not sure what to do. You're making a huge mistake, Sam shouted after him. Dave just shook his head and kept walking. The only mistake I made was coming here in the first place. Oh, that's real mature, Sam yelled. Run away, Dave. It's what you do best. But Dave was already gone. He walked right off that set, past the cameras, past the producers who tried to stop him, and straight out the door. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of Sam standing there, red-faced and angry, while the other hosts tried to figure out what to do next. Robin turned to Sam, and even though her microphone was still on, she didn't seem to care. What were you thinking? I was asking legitimate questions, Sam said defensively. You were being cruel, Laura said quietly. There's no other word for it. George just shook his head, looking at the camera. We need to go to commercial. But the damage was done. In less than 15 minutes, what should have been a simple promotional interview had turned into a complete disaster, and it was all caught on live television for everyone to see. Sam tried to defend himself, talking to the camera about how he was just doing his job, how someone needed to ask Dave the hard questions, how he shouldn't be above scrutiny just because he's famous. But nobody was listening anymore. The audience had turned on him. You could see it in their faces. Michael Strawn spoke up, his voice disappointed. Man, that wasn't right. That wasn't journalism. That was personal. You don't know what you're talking about, Sam snapped at him. I know what I saw, Michael said calmly. And what I saw was you attacking a guest for no reason. The commercial break couldn't come fast enough. As soon as they cut away, chaos erupted in the studio. Producers were running around. The other hosts were arguing with Sam, and Dave was already in his car, driving away from the whole mess. When they came back from commercial, Sam was gone. Robin, George, Michael, and Laura sat at the desk looking shaken. Robin addressed the camera directly. We want to apologize for what just happened. That's not who we are as a show. That's not how we treat our guests. George nodded. Dave Chappelle is a brilliant comedian and a thoughtful person. He deserved better than what happened here today. Laura added, we hope he knows that most of us have nothing but respect for him and his work. Michael finished it off. And we hope he'll give us another chance someday to have the conversation we should have had today. But the apologies felt hollow. The damage was done. The moment had happened, and everyone watching knew that something had gone terribly wrong. Back when Dave first sat down, there was hope in the room. The audience was excited. They wanted to hear Dave talk about his comedy, about his tour, about what inspires him. They wanted to laugh. They wanted to feel connected to someone they admired. Sam had other plans. Even in those first few questions, you could hear something underneath, a kind of tension, like he was waiting for his moment to strike. The friendly opener about the tour was just set up. He was building toward something, and Dave, being the professional he is, gave thoughtful answers. When Sam asked about being back on the road, Dave didn't just say it felt good. He talked about the energy, about the connection with audiences, about what he missed. He was being real. He was being open. That should have been enough. That should have been the tone for the whole interview. But Sam kept pushing, kept digging, kept looking for something to grab onto. When he brought up the $50 million, the whole energy shifted, because that question wasn't about understanding Dave's decision. It was about judging it. The way Sam framed it, with that word selfish, He was already telling the audience what to think. Dave handled it perfectly. He didn't get defensive. He explained his reasoning calmly and clearly. He talked about mental health and family. He talked about being human. Those are things everyone can relate to. But Sam didn't want relatability. He wanted conflict. So he pressed harder. He used words like commitment and contract and disappearing. He was painting a picture of Dave as someone who let people down, who ran away, who couldn't handle the pressure. That's when Robin stepped in the first time. You could hear the concern in her voice. She was trying to reframe the conversation, to steer it towards something more constructive. She wanted to talk about courage, about difficult decisions, about the strength it takes to choose yourself. Dave appreciated that. You could see it in the way he thanked her, in the way his shoulders relaxed, just a little. He thought maybe things were getting back on track, but Sam wasn't done. He kept coming back, kept attacking from different angles. The running away comment was particularly pointed. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation dressed up as a question. Dave's response about honoring his commitments in the ways that mattered was beautiful. It acknowledged that yes, he had made a choice that affected others, but it was a choice he had to make for himself. It was honest without being defensive. George tried to help next. He asked about Dave's comedy, about his voice, about why it matters. It was the kind of question that should have been asked from the beginning, the kind of question that opens up real conversation. And Dave responded to it. He talked about honesty, about saying what people are thinking. He was trying to engage with the substance of what he does, not just defend decisions he made. Years ago. But Sam cut him off. Again, he twisted Dave's words about honesty into something about being controversial. He made it sound like Dave was just trying to shock people, to get attention, to be provocative for the sake of it. That's not what Dave does. Anyone who's actually listened to his comedy knows that. He's thoughtful. He's observant. He talks about real things in ways that make people think and laugh at the same time. Dave tried to explain that. He drew a clear distinction between being controversial and being honest. But Sam wasn't listening. He was already planning his next attack. The comment about hiding behind comedy was the worst one yet, because it implied that Dave was being cowardly, that he was using humor as a shield to say terrible things without consequences. That's when the audience gasped, because even people who might not know Dave's work well could hear how unfair that was. They could hear the malice in it. Dave's response was measured but firm. He didn't rise to the bait. He didn't yell. He simply stated that he doesn't hide behind anything, that comedy is his way of processing the world, and then he turned it around. He suggested that maybe if Sam was offended, the problem wasn't with Dave. That was brilliant, because it put the focus back where it belonged, on Sam's behavior rather than on defending himself endlessly. Sam took that personally. Of course he did, because Dave was right, and Sam knew it. So Sam got defensive, raised his voice, tried to make it seem like he was just doing his job, but everyone could see through it. Michael's uncomfortable shifting in his seat said it all. Laura's attempts to redirect said it all. Robin's wide eyes said it all. This wasn't journalism. This wasn't even a tough interview. This was personal. This was Sam using his position to take shots at someone who couldn't really fight back without looking bad. Except Dave found a way to fight back that was perfect. He called out exactly what Sam was doing. He pointed out that accusations disguised as questions aren't real questions. He made the invisible visible. That's when Sam should have backed off. That's when he should have recognized that he'd crossed a line. But instead, he got angrier. He got more aggressive. He started making it obvious that this was about his ego, not about getting information. Laura's attempt to save it by asking about the tour again was sweet. She was trying so hard to give both of them an out, a way to reset and move forward. And Dave tried to take that out. He answered her question genuinely, talking about the show, about life and family and universal experiences. He was giving them good content. He was giving them exactly what a morning show interview should be. But Sam couldn't let it go. That muttered comment about people finding it offensive, just loud enough to hear, was the breaking point, because it showed that Sam wasn't going to stop. No matter how many times the other hosts tried to redirect, no matter how professionally Dave responded, Sam was committed to this path. Dave's question, "What is your problem, man?" was so direct. It cut through all the pretense. It said, clearly, "I see what you're doing, and I'm calling you on it." Sam's response, claiming he was just doing his job and asking tough questions, was weak, because by that point, everyone knew better. Everyone could see what was really happening. The exchange about being used to having his feet kissed was particularly telling, because it revealed what Sam really thought. He thought Dave was arrogant. He thought Dave expected special treatment. He thought Dave couldn't handle criticism. None of that was true. Dave had been handling actual criticism fine. He'd been answering real questions with honesty and openness. What he couldn't handle, what he shouldn't have to handle, was being attacked. Robin's physical attempt to stop Sam, putting her hand on his arm, showed how worried she was. She could see this spiraling. She could see that Sam was destroying not just the interview, but his own credibility. But Sam was too far gone. When Dave told him to keep talking, to say what he really thought, Sam took that as permission to go all the way. The rant about walking away from millions and leaving people hanging and going to Africa was loaded with judgment and assumptions. It revealed that Sam had come into this interview with a narrative already in his head, and he was determined to force Dave into that narrative, regardless of what Dave actually said. Dave's responses throughout stayed calm. He acknowledged thinking about the people affected. He talked about the reality of what he was going through. He was being vulnerable and honest. But vulnerability and honesty weren't what Sam wanted. He wanted a villain. He wanted someone to blame. He wanted to be the hero who called out the bad guy. Michael's gentle intervention, talking about self-awareness and strength, was important because it showed that not everyone saw things Sam's way. It showed Dave that he had allies at that table, but it also highlighted how alone Sam was in his approach. None of the other hosts were backing him up. None of them were agreeing with his framing. They were all trying to undo the damage he was doing. Sam's insistence that Dave's feelings mattered more than everyone else's livelihoods was such a manipulation. Because that's not what Dave was saying at all. Dave was saying that his mental health mattered, that he had to take care of himself. There's a huge difference between saying your feelings matter and saying they matter more than everyone else's. Sam was trying to make Dave sound selfish when Dave was actually being responsible. What made it even worse was how unnecessary it all was. Dave had come in ready to talk, to share, to connect. He wasn't defensive or difficult. Sam had weaponized that openness. Every answer became twisted into something negative. The other hosts tried to save it. They kept redirecting, but Sam kept pushing. When Dave stood up for himself, Sam tried to make it seem like Dave was the problem. But anyone watching could see the truth. This was about a host using his platform to tear down a guest instead of having a conversation. When Dave unclipped that microphone, it was powerful. It showed everyone that there's dignity in walking away from disrespect, even on live television. That final exchange, when Sam yelled about running away, and Dave drew that line between criticism and cruelty, drove it home. Dave wasn't running. He was standing up. The whole thing lasted less than 15 minutes. But everyone watching got a lesson in how not to treat a guest. Walking out of live television is a big deal. Dave knew how it would look, but he also knew staying would mean accepting disrespect. So he left. And that statement was louder than anything he could have said if he'd stayed. Sam stood there, trying to justify himself. The other hosts looked uncomfortable. The audience didn't know what to do. It was a complete mess because one host decided his ego mattered more than his guest's humanity. It didn't have to happen. Dave was answering honestly and openly, but Sam wanted confrontation. He wanted to be the guy who took down Dave Chappelle. And in trying to create that moment, he revealed his true character. Everyone could see exactly who he was when he had power over someone in the guest chair. What they saw wasn't pretty. They saw someone who used questions as weapons, someone who couldn't tell the difference between holding someone accountable and just being mean. Robin, George, Michael, and Laura tried to have a real conversation. They asked thoughtful questions. They listened. They treated Dave with respect. But Sam wanted to look tough. He wanted to be the hard-hitting journalist who wasn't afraid. Except he wasn't asking difficult questions. He was making accusations. He was being cruel. When Dave called him on it, Sam doubled down. Instead of reconsidering his approach, he got defensive and angry. He tried to make Dave the problem for not wanting to be attacked on live television. When Sam asked if Dave was going to run away again, you could see it in Dave's face. That was the moment he knew this wasn't worth it, that no amount of patience would change what was happening. Sam wasn't interested in understanding. He was interested in tearing Dave down, willing to be as disrespectful as necessary. Dave chose himself. He chose his dignity. He chose to walk away from toxicity. And in doing so, he showed everyone what self-respect looks like. It wasn't dramatic in the way Sam wanted. Dave didn't yell. He didn't throw things. He simply said, "This is not okay," and he left. That calm, that composure in the face of disrespect, made it powerful. It showed Dave acting out of principle, out of a clear understanding of his own worth. Sam's reaction, shouting after Dave, insisting he was running away, proved Dave's point. Sam didn't respect boundaries. He only respected his own need to dominate. The whole thing was a perfect example of what happens when someone in a position of power forgets that power comes with responsibility. Sam had the power in that situation. He was the host. It was his show. Dave was the guest, there at his invitation. And Sam abused that power. He used it to attack instead of to facilitate conversation. He used it to diminish instead of to elevate. He used it to create conflict instead of understanding. That's what made Dave's exit so necessary. Because staying would have meant accepting that abuse of power. It would have meant normalizing the way Sam was treating him. The aftermath in the studio said it all. The other hosts immediately knew what had happened. They knew that Sam had crossed a line. Their faces showed it. Their words showed it. They knew that what had just happened wasn't okay. They knew that Dave had every right to walk out, and they knew that the audience knew it too. The audience wasn't on Sam's side. They were shocked and upset by his behavior. The image of Dave walking off that set became iconic immediately, not because it was shocking, but because it was real. It was a real person making a real choice to protect their dignity in the face of real disrespect. That's what people responded to. Not the conflict itself, but what it revealed. Sam used his power to diminish. Dave used his agency to protect himself. The questions Sam asked weren't the problem. You can ask about walking away from millions of dollars, about leaving a show, about coming back. Those are fair questions. It was how he asked them. The tone, the framing, the assumption of bad faith. That's what crossed the line. That's the lesson from this whole mess. Not that interviews are bad or that tough questions shouldn't be asked, but that there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything and attacking your guest under the guise of journalism is definitely the wrong way. Dave Chappelle walked onto that set ready to have a conversation. He walked off that set having taught everyone watching about self-respect, boundaries, and the importance of walking away from toxicity.